Welcome to episode 83 of the Mio on MMA podcast, where you listen to me, Mio, talk about the fights that happened, the fights that will happen, and whatever else is going on in the MMA sphere. Last night, we had UFC Vegas 70. That's going to be the main focus here today. But we're also going to talk about Bellator 291 and one on Prime 7, one fight night on Prime 7, whatever they want to call that. To be honest, searching for that on Prime TV, really annoying actually. Before I get into anything though, real quick, either below, to the right, to the left, or above, you are going to find a link, a description of this podcast. And there are going to be a couple of links. One is a link to my Discord. I would encourage you to check it out because I run a mixed martial arts simulator. You can think of this as kind of like a mixed martial arts RPG game where you role play as a professional fighter. It's kind of interesting. It's fun. I think it'll tickle your nerd centers. You'll also find my social media, other places you can find this podcast, such as Spotify, Acast, Anchor, and YouTube, as well as my video game stuff with Twitch and YouTube. There you go. All right, we're done with that. We're done with that part. Like I said, my name is Mio. I'm a fan of mixed martial arts for 20 years, give or take, as well as training during that time period, and 25 years if we include combat sports in general. So let's get into everything here. So first up, I do want to talk about a couple of non-fight things. Fight things. Obviously, we got the Jake Paul Tommy Fury card, which is going on right now, actually, as I am recording this, somewhere in the undercard. Let me give it a quick refresh here. As we are speaking, we are in the middle of the Martinez versus, I'm not honestly going to try to say that name, Zayed Almayouf and Ronald Martinez. That's the fight that's going on right now. I haven't done a preview video on the card because, number one, I don't do a lot of boxing previews, just period. And number two, my take on Jake Paul and Tommy Fury is I have no idea how good either of them are. I say this because I've seen them both fight. I've watched. I have seen Tommy Fury beat up professional boxing opponents. I've seen Jake Paul beat up people who have name value, notoriety, and combat sports credentials, in some cases, Anderson Silva, Tyron Woodley, and Ben Askren, but are not boxers. My general feeling is I feel like Jake Paul has all the physical requirements to be a pretty good boxer, but is very, very early in his journey, and it shows. His technique is kind of rough, lacking fluid movement, and so on. And Tommy Fury has fairly fluid movement, but again, has fought absolutely no one. So, I don't know. And to be honest, I don't overly care. The whole Jake Paul thing may bring more fans to combat sports. That's cool. That's interesting, I guess. But the fights themselves hold no particular appeal to myself. Okay, so enough of that. Just a couple other things. It was pretty funny to see Dana White's Twitter account talk about the Kyrlov Spann main event being next when they had already announced that the fight was off. And the other two funny things I've seen in the combat sports sphere is John Jones is part of the countdown video, I guess the UFC countdown for UFC 285. Is him talking about, like, I have a team of dangerous dudes that are helping me prepare. And he goes on to detail Maurice Green, Jorgen De Castro, and Walt Harris. I want to be clear, because a lot of people are defending this by, pointing out that as a general rule, mixed martial arts elite heavyweights do not train with each other because they are a possible competition. And very few gyms have a better stable of fighters than that. And I 100% agree. The difference is that usually in these countdown specials, we do not get details on fighters that bad. Generally speaking, if you pay close attention, you might see them in the training, but they will not be detailed and they will not be pointed out as like some great advantage that the fighter that you're hyping up has. Because training with Walt Harris, Maurice Green, and Jorgen De Castro is not like fighting Cyril Gane. Like that is the nutshell of it. And to be honest, I'm surprised that they didn't go into deciding that they brought in an actual kickboxing heavyweight. That feels like something they should have done. Also, it was a bit weird that we're going to talk about his fight later, and I'm going to have very few positive things to say, but Dontel Mays is a Jackson fighter. And you would think they would have taken the opportunity to hype him up a little bit, given that he had a fight coming up. Probably a good idea in hindsight because the fight was bad. But we'll talk about that. And the final thing I'm going to say is I found a just weird tweet. Is from a guy with 500 followers, so I'm not taking it seriously or whatever, but it was a retweet of Peyton Hand, I think is her name, the Oklahoma wrestler who became a 4-time state champion in wrestling. First time anyone's done that, female-wise. And his whole thing was just like, oh my lord, it's come to this. Wrestling girls, do they wear jocks? Our country is doomed. Wrestling's been an Olympic sport for women for since 2004, so about 20 years. So we're about 2 decades late if you're just trying to make that an issue. Just saying. And I don't understand it in any way because how does women learning to wrestle, voluntarily I might add, hurt a country? If anything, it just makes the women stronger and more combat effective, I guess. But I don't know. Logic and sexism don't usually particularly go hand in hand. And let's talk about Bellator 291. I believe is the number associated with this one. It's the Amosov versus Logan Storley card. The undercard was pretty garbage, if I'm being honest. I wasn't really looking forward to much on it. I was looking forward to seeing Jenna Bishop fight. She's a BJJ. I don't know if she's a champion or anything, but she's an excellent BJJ practitioner that I kind of wish had taken an MMA career path before she hit like 35. So I think that was when she had her first fight. Because, she's not going to turn into anything massive. The time period just isn't going to allow for it. But she has like a lot of physical requisites. Like, think about what Mackenzie Dern is doing without being like particularly good at takedowns or anything. Jenna Bishop could have been, I think, a fair bit better. Just at adapting BJJ to MMA. She beat Alina Kalianadu, who, for the love of God, can we get her to a decent gym? Because she has all the physical aspects you could ask for, and she actually seems reasonably composed in all of her fights. She's got 9-5 as a pro. It feels like she should be way better if she wasn't at Armago's gym in Thessalonica, Greece, which has basically nothing else. The number one fighter they have listed on Tapology is a 13-9 dude, and then you get to 8-11 dude pretty quickly. There's another female there who's 2-0. And is 36 years old, so that's probably not really doing as much. But yeah, if she got to a decent camp, ATT, Fortis MMA, Alliance Jiu-Jitsu, or Alliance Kickboxing, AKA, Elevation, even something like Ricardo Almeida BJJ, or Cesar Gracie, I think she could be a problem. And she's still pretty young. I just had her up, and I didn't think to look at her age. Yeah, she's 24. So I've sung her praises before. The fight itself is nothing to write home about. It's Bishop getting takedowns, not really knowing how to dominate on top. in MMA, as in like not being able to utilize, say, ground and pound or strikes, but doing a good job and just cruising to a decision. Nothing else really on the undercard is really worth talking about. Except for Norbert Noveni Jr. He picked up a first round stoppage of Andy Manzolo. Manzolo's like a veteran dude. He got like 36 professional MMA bouts. He's got a bunch of Muay Thai belts and whatever. Like, he's a seasoned fighter who's kind of seen it all. And he was very, very overwhelmed by Noveni's athleticism. But a lot of people are like, yeah, Norbert Noveni is going to be a problem. Like, this guy's going to be amazing. This guy trains with London Shoot Fighters. They produce Michael Venom Page. Let's pump the brakes a little bit until he fights somebody good. And I'm not criticizing his choice of opponents, because man is 6-0, 6 pro fights. He should not have fought anybody. The only thing is that we should treat him as such. So maybe in like a year's time, we'll be talking about having him face a test. If he passes that, maybe we talk about something. But right now, I think there's a lot too much being made of this. Charlie Ward versus Mike Shipman was unfortunately kind of dull. And so was Oleg Popov versus Gokhan Saracham. Or Saracham? Saracham. I think they throw a little H sound in there. Both of those fights were kind of dull, despite the fact that, I don't know, I had a little, like a tiny little bit of hype for them. Because I think Saracham is actually a pretty decent fighter for a heavyweight. And Ward versus Shipman did have fun upside, even if it was going to be a mess. But anyways, Shipman just dominated that fight, and there's not really much more to say. Sinead Kavanaugh picked up a win against Janae Harding. Not a surprise. Harding is too nervous as an MMA striker, honestly. She actually does have like some reasonably fluid technique and everything, and like decent range gathering, and there's the ingredients, and she's with the right team. She's with City Kickboxing to be a good fighter, but I think she's too chronically nervous about stepping into the pocket and exchanging and going deep into exchanges and putting really any power on anything, because she'll just reach out and touch her opponents a lot. And it means that at some point the opponent realizes, this isn't really troubling me. I can sort of cut the cage off without fear of getting knocked out and push her into the cage. Because for someone who does have the credentials of a reasonably solid kickboxer, I think she has only one actual striking stoppage on her feet. And that was back in 2015, yeah. Ground and pound stoppage, cut stoppage in Sinead Kavanaugh. Yeah. It's a bit of a problem, and I've noticed it before, and that was the highlight of this, or that was the theme of the fight. And Peter Queally is just not very good. And when Bryce Logan got him up against Cage, he unloaded on him, hurt him, dropped him, finished him. Queally got a lot of Queally gets a lot of love from the Irish crowd, and I don't really know why, and I don't really care why. You guys in Ireland love him. It's cool. The zombie entrance, the crowd singing the song through even the intros. It is actually a thing to experience. But as a fighter, he's just not very good, and he got a lot of mileage out of a cut stoppage win against Patricky Pitbull. Jeremy Kennedy, Pedro Carvalho didn't watch. Apparently Kennedy won. Not surprised. I just don't think Carvalho is very good. I don't find Kennedy tremendously appealing as a fighter. But hey, go Canada. Kennedy is from, I believe, the West Coast. And then we had the main event, Yaroslav Amosov returning from the war in Ukraine and just absolutely shut down Logan Storley. Storley was unable to get his wrestling going at any point. He did land some punches and whatever, but Amosov had all the answers for him. Just a way better striking performance. He would hit him with like 3-4 strikes for every one whenever they were exchanging. He was not afraid to throw kicks, which is very impressive against a wrestler like Storley. I mean, Michael, even MVP was a little bit hesitant to throw kicks. Amosov blasted him. Looks like he's fully prepared to resume his path as maybe the best welterweight. Because like a couple of Twitter accounts were like alive about talking about like, so does Bellator have the best middleweight, welterweight, 205er in the world. And I don't think you can really say that they have the best in any of those weight classes. Say maybe 205, because the UFC's 205 division is just in a really weird place right now. But to be honest, I wouldn't see Amosov as a large underdog against anyone in the UFC. His problem essentially is going to be that who else is there even in Bellator for him to fight? I'm going to pull up the Bellator rankings real quickly here. Welterweight rankings. Bantamweight, featherweight, lightweight, welterweight. There we are. Michael Venom Page is still like number 2 on their rankings. And I'm not a big fan of Jason Jackson. And I think Douglas Lima's kind of done. And then we're down to like Koreshkov, Gracie, Yamamuchi, Brennan Ward, Lorenz Larkin, and Sabah Homasi. And I want to say he's probably fought some of that group already. He's got a win over Lima. 2 over Logan Storley, obviously. Well, that's it. That's actually it. So, I guess everything else is still fresh. I guess you can put him in there with like Jason Jackson or something, and that might be a little fun. I don't know. It's just not. And this is not like crapping on Bellator. It's the fact that we know that the UFC or the MMA world rotates around the UFC. The biggest talents go there. If Bellator has like 3 or 4 guys in a division worth anything, it's pretty much a win. But their lightweight division, for example, actually is pretty good. Usman Nurmagomedov, Patrick Pitbull, Benson Henderson, Tafek Musafayev, Islam Mamedov, like these, AJ Baki, these are all like pretty fun. But there's not much that's going to like impress. That's really, if you're not impressed with Amosov now, you're not going to be impressed with him based on anything he does in Bellator, I guess is the problem. So that's all I have to say about Bellator. Over in one, if you've not checked out Fabricio de Andrade versus John Lineker, the main event from Prime 7, do that. That's a good fight. It's a good fight. Like, Lineker is too small for the weight class, if we're being honest. And if he, whatever is wrong with his weight cutting, like the guy probably realistically is a flyweight. But it's a fun fight. It's a fun action fight. And, you can just enjoy 25 minutes of that. And you can also see Jamal Yusupov get his leg completely shut down by Taiwan Chai with like, I don't want to say it was the first leg kick because I think it was like the second or third, but he just leg kicked him in the thigh and that leg stopped working. End fight. There you go. Done. None of the other MMA was all that exciting. It wasn't bad, but when Danny Kingat and Martin Winner winning, like great Filipino, Southeast Asia, because I think Win has an Australian flag next to him, so I assume he's not from the Philippines, even though I originally thought that was the case. Absolute pioneers, all the respect in the world to both dudes, but they're not fighting. If you're not getting past those guys, you're just not really all that good. And Danielle Kelly won a decision in a grappling bout. And actually, the Andre Stoica and Francisco Jaja fight, the heavyweight kickboxing match, not bad. Not bad. Not amazing. Not can't miss. But if you're going to set some time aside to watch this card, it's worth picking up and having a look at. Linda Darrow lost her first fight. That was an MMA fight, right? She drops to 6-1, which is a shame. I was a little excited for her, even though she really has not beaten anyone yet. And Victoria Souza was by far the best fighter that she had fought. But still a little disappointing. And Phillip De Fries melted Todd Duffy to continue to defend his KSW heavyweight title, which it's been a pretty impressive run for Phillip De Fries since getting cut by the UFC. So those who don't remember Phil De Fries, he fought in the UFC way back in the day. We're talking like 2011. Beat Rob Broughton, lost to Stipe Miocic before we realized Stipe was really, really good. I want to say he was like Stipe's second win. I know Stipe's first win was Joey Beltran. Yeah, second win in the octagon, first stoppage. And then beat Ole Thompson, lost to Todd Duffy, so this was a rematch, and lost to Matt Mitrione in the first round. Got unceremoniously dumped, but then went on a mixed bag run for a bit, beating Brett Rogers at a couple of cans, losing to Thomas Denham, losing to Satoshi Ishii, who's not a bad fighter, and losing to some dude named Ivan Shrikov, who was undefeated at the time. Let's see. Do I know this guy? 22-2, and Euro Hulk. Yeah, I don't actually ever remember his name. It's Euro Hulk. Okay. And then since then, he's gone on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 fight win streak. Over reasonable names, like we're talking Thomas Narcoon, Todd Duffy, Darko Stosic, who's a UFC veteran, Michel Kita, Luis Enrique, Narcoon twice actually, Carol Beddorf, Michael Andresiak, James Thompson. I know people will laugh when I say James Thompson. And obviously, it's because of the I watched a lot of DVDs line. But if you look at James Thompson's losses, it's pretty good. Like, this is a guy who's lost to Tengiz Tederatsi, legend of the Eastern European and English scene, Alex Emelianenko, Fujita, Rob Broughton, John Olev Inamo, Butterbean. Okay, that's a little embarrassing. Neil Grove, solid fighter. Brett Rogers, Kimbo Slice, Jim York. Should not have lost to Kimbo Slice, by the way. Jim York, Alistair Overeem, Rob Broughton again, Miodrag Pekovic, Yusuke Kawaguchi, who's not bad, Bobby Lashley, TK Kosaka, and Phillip De Fries. By MMA heavyweight standards, that's not a bad selection of losses. And, does have wins over Eric Prindle, does have wins over Martius Pujanowski, Tengiz Tederatsi. He did eventually revenge his loss to him. Beat Yoshida, beat Don Fry. It's not bad. And beat Dan Severn back in 2004 when that still kind of meant a thing. Kind of. He was the 11th guy to beat Dan Severn. Is Dan Severn retired in 2016? Okay. Whew. After failed belts with Tank Abbott and Ken Shamrock. Oh, God. Why was someone trying to make those fights? Why? Anyways, let's get to the UFC card here. Alrighty, so the important thing to note, of course, is that this was supposed to be a main event between Ryan Spann and Nikita Krylov. And apparently Krylov came down with what is being reported as food poisoning. And this card also lost Jose Johnson versus... Why am I blanking on who he was fighting? Why am I blanking right this second? I have the Tapology page. Jose Johnson was Garrett Armfield. That's the one. Garrett Armfield. So we lost that fight when Johnson pulled out with a medical issue. And also Haley Cowan came down ill and did not end up fighting Eileen Perez, which is disappointing, according to my Discord, because everyone apparently, at least a couple of people, were looking forward to me ranting about Eileen Perez winning or losing because she provokes a response out of me. That's for sure. I guess her marketing is working. So we ended up with Andre Muniz versus Brendan Allen as the main event. Like I said, Dana White's account actually wound up still promoting the old main event. Allen looked good in this fight. When he stepped forward and started putting punches together, Muniz didn't have a great answer for him. Like when they were doing the typical MMA you go, I go thing, where it's like, all right, I'm going to throw a couple punches and then I'm going to reset and let you go. That was pretty 50-50. But when Allen was like, I'm going to step on the gas here and I'm not going to throw 1-2 punches. No. I'm going to put together like 4 or 5 punches, come forward and force you to retreat. He landed pretty good. He shut down the wrestling of Muniz pretty effectively. Even had a reversal on him. I forget what round it was in now. Yeah, it was in the second round when Muniz went for a takedown, got it, but Brendan Allen rolled through, ended up on top, and even got to like side control, was controlling him as the round expired. So like, proving that the ground game wasn't going to go all Muniz's way, that Brendan Allen is maybe a candidate for best grappler at middleweight, which is a little horrifying still to me. But like, the one thing I will say about him is he's improved. He has gotten better every time out. Like, I came into this fight expecting, like, this is a guy who got taken down very easily by Jacob Malkoun off a single leg. And he's fighting Andre Muniz. Muniz is a top shelf grappler. Muniz is a guy who takes people down, utilizing a single leg with great proficiency. This is going to be ugly. And Allen, I don't think he even got a single takedown against Allen. I don't have a takedown landed because I don't consider the roll through to be really a takedown. Because I mean, if you end up with a guy on top of you, did you really take him down like immediately? Yeah, they did not credit Muniz with a takedown. So there you go. He didn't go for a ton. Like Muniz kind of apparently looked at this as like a time to work on his striking. Maybe he was worried about gassing out because we have seen him, get tired before. Maybe he thought like this is a time to work on my boxing, work on my kickboxing and do it. And it actually did look better. While I'm talking about Allen's improvements, let's talk about Muniz's. He looked a little bit more complete. But obviously that was not the pathway to victory. And Allen got his back in the third round and picked up an RNC. After the fight, Allen was not short on callouts. He wants Sean Strickland. He wants Jack Hermanson. He wants Chris Curtis. He wants Dricus du Plessis. I have another idea, actually. So he's probably ranked now. I was surprised he wasn't ranked before this, but mostly because they still had Darren Till and Kelvin Gastelum ranked because both of them should not be ranked. Because, I mean, we're talking about Gastelum, who is 1-4 in his last 5. And I think Darren Till, outside of the win over Gastelum, also has nothing in his last 5. I'm going to propose Brendan Allen versus the loser of the Marvin Vettori-Roman Dolidze fight. Because both of those guys are hard to take down. Not necessarily good strikers, but game strikers. Dolidze likes to throw power kicks on the outside, and Vettori likes to throw a fair bit of volume and like be really aggressive. And like I said, the best moments Allen had on the feet was when he took the initiative. He took the front foot. So like it would be a continuation of a test on him of how good can he get? Because he's 27 years old. I was talking with Tim, who's been a MMA fan for a long time on Twitter. We tweet back and forth with each other. And he was very much not a believer in Brendan Allen. And to be clear, I'm not really much of one, but he was talking about how, and he's right, like he's very hittable. He's not, if this is his pinnacle, he's not going to do much more than top, like, low-end top 15. We're talking like probably like, I don't know, 9 to 12 maybe. But the way he's been getting better and better and better and improving, I'm legitimately interested to see him go out there and do some things. Because it seems like, last I checked, he was still with Killcliff. Tapology has him unaffiliated. Great. That may suggest that he's somewhere else. I didn't actually recognize his corner in this event. But it's fun stuff. He's getting better. He's improving. He's 27 years old or something like that. He may not be done yet. Middleweight is not a deep place. I mean, the guys I suggested to him, Marvin Vettori and Roman Dolidze, are also in their own right incredibly flawed fighters. So, who are ranked in the top 10. So, there's a lot to work with there. And for Muniz, I would love him to fight Gregory Rodriguez. I just want to see him grapple with people. Augusto Sakai, Dontel Mays. This was a bad fight. This ended up being the co-main event. That's painful. Sakai won, so kudos to him. Got the job done. Forced Mays to clinch repetitively. Mays had no answers for the clinch. Just largely ate knee after knee after knee. Wasn't able to overpower Sakai. So I suppose in a nutshell, it's a good performance from Sakai. It's an aggressive clinch-based game, which may suit him better. But I have all the same concerns I had coming into the fight. If you'll remember when I broke this fight down, I picked Mays to win, and I said, it has very, very little to do with Mays. It has to do with the fact that Sakai is a guy who is very hittable, relied on his chin, relied on his durability for a long time, and that chin and that durability appears to be gone. At no point in this fight did Mays really hit him. Did he give him a clean chin check? Did he do honestly anything? He had a pumping straight left hand at one point that he landed twice in a row, and that was the highlight for him. It was bad. And it's not exactly a great endorsement, a ringing endorsement for John Jones's training camp right now for his heavyweight run. Just saying. Mind you, this has always been the case. Every time we've had a John Jones training partner come in, oh, this guy trains with John Jones. Oh, this guy's going to be great. They tend to just have professional training partner syndrome where they're incredibly used to being bullied. They're hard to take out of it. At no point did Mays give up, but they don't actually have answers for said bully. So anyways, next for Sakai, I've got Chris Daukaus, another guy who I'm really kind of worried about. And for Mays, I've got Parker Porter, who will do this same thing to him probably. And we'll see. Because if you can't handle this, I don't want to see you in the UFC. I'm willing to give you a second chance. But this is kind of a William Knight scenario where okay, if you can't fix this, I don't know what to do with you. And in his case, it's even worse because William Knight, at least it's how many 205ers are going to willingly sit on the outside with you? A lot of them are going to come in, going to play the clinch and pocket game. But with Mays, how many heavyweights are not going to just crash into the clinch and push you into the fence? Seriously. Tatiana Suarez submitted Montana De La Rosa in the second round. She looked a little bit rusty, but it was fine. The real talk about this fight was Montana De La Rosa's kind of very near wardrobe malfunction she was having, to the point where she was adjusting her top. There is some lovely thoughts on how the UFC could improve their uniform design. I don't really have anything to offer on that matter, but there you go. Suarez looks fine for a return. Like I said, little rusty, a little bit more hard time getting the fight down than we're used to seeing. But she was facing a not massively larger girl, but a girl that fights routinely at 125 and has okay takedown defense and reasonable fight IQ, and generally is prepared for an opponent. So well scouted. And she did get the job done. So I've got her against Amanda Lemos next, and basically a number one contender's fight at strawweight. Unofficially, because the UFC never actually does number one contender fights, if you think about it. They've rescinded them so many times that you can't trust it. And for Montana De La Rosa, I was just scrolling through the rankings. Her versus Melissa Gatto does seem like a fun experience. It's Gatto has a major weakness in her game on a technical level. Takedown defense. Montana De La Rosa would probably study that, would probably try to attack that, and it would be fun. And Gatto is a strong monster of a woman who I like to see fight. And I think that would just be a fun fight. And hopefully things go well. Mike Malott submitted Johan Leonis with an arm triangle. he had a bit of a weird thing after the fight where he's talking about, I'm a jammer, I'm a freestyle guy. I don't really think any of his fights really are of that nature. like he's a guy who debuted against Mickey Gall and struck with Mickey Gall, a guy who is known for his grappling and known for being a bad striker. And went to the ground with Johan Lainez here after striking with him for a bit, like in fairness, but went to the ground with him the first real opportunity that presented itself and submitted him. And Lainez is not a good grappler, and I think may have hurt his shoulder at some point because he was not happy with even getting like pressure from Mallet when he was working for a submission. Didn't realize that Mallet is apparently training out of Burlington, Ontario, which is my hometown. Never met him though, so I suspect he did not go to my jiu-jitsu gym. But he's also 5 years younger than me, and is originally from Waterdown, which is just to the north. And Waterdown does have its own gym, so probably went there when I was there. Anyways, he made a big stink about like, let's get the UFC back to Toronto. It'd be cool. But my understanding about UFC events at this point is that if your government has any kind of or like any kind of vax requirement or anti-COVID stuff, which we still do have and still should have, you're gonna have to pay a lot of money to do it. And to be honest, even if you don't have that stuff, like if you remember the Utah card, it's like Tourism Utah everywhere. They paid, I assure you, they paid a big fee to get the UFC down there. And Tourism Australia was on the Volkanovski Makachev card as well. So I don't really think that there's a government institution right now in Canada, federally or provincially in Ontario, that really is going to shovel out a lot of money for a UFC card. So despite Mike Mallet and Jasmine Jasudavicius calling for it on this card, I don't think we're getting it. There you go. Next fights for Mike Malott. I've got Michael Morales. They're two people that I have hanging doubts about that I don't know how far they go. For opposite reasons. I actually kind of like the game Mallett's putting together, both as a striker and as a grappler. I like the athleticism of Michael Morales a lot, but I also think that he's very wooden and awkward as a striker, and I don't think has partnered up with a particularly great gym. So, like, put them together and let's see. Like, I think that's the appropriate level test for both guys, who are, I believe, undefeated in the UFC. Johan Lainez, I've got AJ Fletcher. It's just a fun action match. Fletcher will, in a nutshell, Fletcher will bring a pace to Lainez that either he gets finished or gets an opening for a big shot or has to match it. And that's the kind of fight I want to see Lainez have to handle before I'm really comfortable having him in the UFC long term. So I think that's just a fun fight. Make that happen. Eric Gonzalez versus Trevor Peek. I have nothing to say about this fight other than Trevor Peek is a disaster of a fighter. He has terrible technique in every regard, but he's aggressive, lethal, venomous, and apparently has every physical attribute. He's Mike Perry, but worse. Now, to be clear, probably better than Mike Perry as a person, but worse than him as a technician. And he went out there and finished Eric Gonzalez, who is not good, just not good. Took more punishment than he needed to. Peek gets the win, and I don't care where either of these guys go because I think they're just both terrible, and they're in one of the best divisions in all of MMA. I will say this. If Peek gets with, like, actual coaching, maybe there's something there because there's nothing physically he's missing. He just has no technique. Trains out of Agogi Combatives in Chattanooga. And they have like him and a 4-0 fighter named Torres Finney. And that's about it, as far as I can tell. Like, there are other people listed here, but their records suggest that they are not worth paying attention to. And I don't really have anything else to say. I don't really have anything else to say. He's a mess. And Gonzalez just is bad. There you go. Moving on down from fighters I don't care about to fighters I do care about. Gabriela Fernandez took on Jasmine Jasudavicius. Gabriela is very talented, but she let herself get walked down by Jasmine Jasudavicius. She got clinched with. She got taken down. She got controlled. She got beaten up, particularly in the second round, with a crucifix and ground and pound from Jasudavicius. She could not get back up. She had a terrible, terrible moment in the third round where Jasudavicius has a single leg within the first minute of the round, puts her down, and Fernandez is like, maybe I can guillotine her while she's exhausted and doesn't have the remote position for it. So everything I said that led to me picking Fernandez is still true. I still do think that she has an excellent range game. I like the layered striking that she has. I like the athletic upside that she has. But girl needs to learn to wrestle. Like, needs to be locked in a wrestling room and told that she cannot come out until the wrestlers stop taking her down. Because it was pretty easy. Also, like, Cagecraft. That's her big weakness that I didn't even realize that she had, is that she just kind of got, like, herded into the fence and taken down. So, needs to work on that. Needs to do some things. Still has all the upside that you would want. If you want to give her a fight relatively soon, put her in there with Handy Goldie and let her open a can. There's a lot of noise coming from upstairs. And for Jasmine Jasudavicius, I have the winner of Karine Silva versus Priscilla Cachoeira as a good, fun fight that is appropriate for her station right now. Jordan Leavitt steamrolled Victor Martinez and is the topic of all kinds of stuff afterwards in terms of his sexuality and stuff. And I don't know. Here's the weird thing is, like, people are asking, like, is he the first gay fighter in the UFC? And as far as I know, we've never had an openly gay fighter in the UFC. The closest would be like Dakota Cochran, who, did he ever fight in the UFC or did he just do tough? Because he did gay porn. I think Aaron Brink might have also, but Aaron Brink swears that he's straight. And is very, very homophobic on top of that. Did Dakota Cochran ever fight in the UFC? The answer is no. He lost to James Vick on The Ultimate Fighter. Does he identify himself as gay? Hang on a sec. There's a section here. Cochran adamantly claims that he is heterosexual. Okay. I don't know. He's married and has 3 children. Leave it also married, has kids. Not really anyone's business. If they want to come out, they can come out, whatever. But, like, it's kind of weird that this is such a hang up for certain fans, because I don't know how to tell you this, guys. But if you train jiu-jitsu, there's even a joke in I don't even remember what show it was, but there was a show that I was watching. It's like, jiu-jitsu, that's like the gayest sport ever. And it kind of is. And I I don't know. Maybe it's just my last name can be turned into like a word for a gay person very, very easily. Or I don't know. Maybe that's the problem. But yeah, when I started doing jiu-jitsu, a lot of gay jokes came my way. So like the people who are offended about like Jordan Leavitt maybe being a little light in the loafers, buzz off. I don't know. He's entertaining to me. And you got the win over Victor Martinez here. I don't care what happens to Martinez. He's one of many fighters on this card. You're going to hear me say it. Not UFC caliber. And for Jordan Leavitt, put him against Vince Pichel, because I'm pretty sure Vince Pichel I know he's very, very conservative. Probably homophobic as shit. And fighting the twerker guy probably will annoy the heck out of him. Ode Osborne, Charles Johnson had a good fight at flyweight. It wasn't amazing. I don't think you need to go back and watch it if you missed it or whatever. But it was basically Osborne putting a lot of volume on Johnson, particularly early on. But like Johnson landing, in my opinion, the notably better shots. They gave a split decision to Ode Osborne here. I'm fine with the decision. I did score rounds 1 and 2 for Johnson and round 3 for Ode. So I do disagree with the decision, but I assume an MMA decisions. Oh, hang on. I had pulled this up. Let's see here. What were the cards? Ode Osborne, Charles Johnson. Let's see here. Judge Demetrio Camijo gave Johnson the second and third. He gave him the win. I thought Ode won the third. 1 and 3 for Osborne from Chris Lee. Makes sense. 1 and 3 from Anthony Manus. Makes sense. So ironically, I'm actually more raising an eyebrow at the card that went to Johnson. What was the volume? Johnson landed 23, outlanded him 23-14. Maybe I should have given all 3 rounds to him. Very close, like 23-21, 11-16, 14-23. Those were the significant strike numbers. And in a nutshell, Johnson scored a couple of takedowns in the first round and then got taken down by Osborne in the second and third. But there was not a lot of grappling. This was mostly just a kickboxing match, and with very, very, very equal volume. I don't have much to say about the scoring. I was a little bit frustrated because it did feel like obviously I picked Johnson and he lost, so I'm a little frustrated just because of that. We lost a close fight that I thought Johnson should win. And the thing was is that when Johnson was active, when he was on the front foot, when he was aggressive, he actually had a lot of success. It was when he sat back at range and went 1-for-1 with Ode that he was in trouble. He also got his leg caught so many times. I don't think I've seen that many leg kick or kick catches in a fight in a long time. So credit to Osborne for that, for bringing that to life. Next opponent, Ode versus the winner of CJ Vergara, Daniel De Silva. And for Johnson, I have Alessandro Costa. Keep in mind, the problem here is that flyweight is just a really, really shallow division in terms of literal numbers, but is actually really fun. But there you go. Joe Selecki took to the second round to get the back of Carl Deaton III and submit him. Choked him unconscious with 10 seconds left on the clock. Selecki went full born-again Christian dude after the fight. I didn't know he was heavy Christian. I'm a little disappointed by that. Someone else did as well. I want to say, yeah, Trevor Peak. Trevor Peak, also a Jesus freak, but was like at least kind of fun about it and crazy. So at least I had that to look forward to. Here's the thing. This triggered a conversation on Twitter for me with another MMA fan in regards to the whole fighters thanking Jesus after fights. And I've never been a fan of it. And it's not an anti-religious standpoint. I'm against it because I was raised in a pretty strict sect of Christianity, Jehovah's Witnesses, if you must know. And with all the anti-greed, anti-violence stuff that the Bible preaches, and that are part of all of that, and as far as I can tell, that's not a Jehovah's Witness only thing. Like, there are Christian faith sects that are anti-professional sports, like, period. And particularly would be anti-prize fighting. If you really distill it down to the base core tenets of the faith. And you're out here basically, and explicitly in some cases, saying that, like, Jesus smiles on you, God smiles on you, God picked you to win against another fighter who probably is Christian given the preponderance of Christians in the UFC. And I've always just, I don't know, like the child in me that was raised a Christian is the part that's actually kind of offended by that. Not the I'm not an atheist, but the agnostic that I had become in my 30s. So I don't know. It's weird. Someone tried to explain it to me. The problem is that they took it on a whole, like, if you have faith in God, everything you do is about God. He gets you the power to do everything, which is like this whole non-free will, non-personal achievement mentality that I don't really get. Anyways, enough of the religion talk. For Selecki, I've got Claudio Puelles, and Deaton fits into that category of, say it with me, not UFC caliber. We will probably see him again, but I don't care against who. Do him and Victor Martinez. There you go. Because that was the thing, is we had a bunch of lightweights that I just don't care about on this card. Between Gonzalez, Peak, Martinez, and Deaton. I guess I care about Peak a little bit. Like, a little bit. Because if he does decide to go and find actual coaching, he might be good. Nuru Aliev versus Rafael Alves. We had the weird point deduction for biting. I don't think I've seen that in the UFC ever. The only biting I can recall UFC-wise is James Chaney and John Manley, I think it was, on The Ultimate Fighter. It was the Roy Nelson, Shane Carwin season. One of them, I don't even remember which one, but one of them bit the other one. The one that lost bit. And Mike Kyle bit Wes Sims, of course, back in the day. I didn't find the foul particularly egregious. Some people were asking for a DQ, which I kind of get. Like, biting an opponent does feel like a DQ thing. But I also feel like what we saw in the replay was Alves was digging around for the chin to try to utilize some head movement, basically, in a grappling exchange. Finger went in the mouth, and I don't know if Aliev tried to bite it or it just got bit. So I think the point deduction was perfectly fine. I did score the fight for Alves because I gave him the third round, or not for him. I scored it a draw. I gave Aliev the first and the second, and then I gave Alves the third, and that would be a draw. Let's see what the actual scorecards were. There they are. Okay, so Judge Adelaide Bird gave all 3 rounds to him. Same with Camidro. And interestingly, Ron McCarthy gave the first round to Alves. So he gave him a 10-8. And he was the draw one. Let's pop up the stats here real quick. Not that there's much to talk about, because the significant strikes were 19-6. Like, the only thing I thought was that, I don't know, maybe I need to go back and watch that third round again, because apparently Aliev outlanded him 36-5. So my draw card is going out the door real quickly here. I don't know what it was. The third round seemed way closer. You know what it was? It was Basically, nothing happened in the first half of the round, and Alves landed a relatively big knee. Aliyev shot in for a takedown. Alves got his guillotine and ended up rolling it to mount and got a dominant position. I thought he landed some ground and pound, but apparently he did not. And then he got reversed with like basically about a half round to go, and Aliyev didn't do anything. So, I guess I've convinced myself that I probably just need to go watch that round again. Well, no, I don't. Because, like, to be clear, Aliyev would have won this fight if he didn't bite Alves either way on my cards. So there's not really anything to talk about. But Aliyev did kind of show that his Dana White Contender Series performance is not what he is. He's just not very active. Like Trevor Peake, who we talked about, I think he has all the physical attributes. He's composed. He's got an excellent wrestling game, of course, being from Tajikistan. He's got an excellent top control game. He stays composed even when he's in a guillotine. Again, I don't think that the bite was really a thing. By which I mean, I think he did bite him, apparently. There was a mark on Alves' finger, apparently. But I don't think it was like, he's going to be like a big fouling fighter in the future or whatever. I don't think that that's a thing. But I do think he's dull. I do think he's a guy who either needs to face somebody who makes him be active, and we'll see, because, he's clearly capable of it. His Dana White Contender Series fight was actually exciting. I just feel like the people who were excited for him have only seen that fight, probably need to go watch this fight and realize that despite having dominant control for a lot of this fight, he landed double-digit significant strikes in one round out of the three. So this was kind of dull. For scoring purposes, I may go watch it again. Next opponents. For Alves, I've got Ottman Zaitar because Alves is essentially just an action fighter. So Zaitar is essentially just an action fighter. He is going to have a job because, well, if breaking COVID protocols and smuggling someone into your hotel room along with a briefcase full of something doesn't get you released from the UFC, as well as various connections to organized crime, I don't know what will. And we might as well have action fights with him. And for Aliyev, I've got Matt Frivola, because Matt Frivola tends to bring a drug-fueled almost rage to a fight that hopefully will make Aliyev actually fight. So there you go. I think that's perfect matchmaking. That is all for this card. Coming up, of course, we've got UFC 285. And maybe I'll talk about the Jake Paul Tommy Fury fight. Maybe. John Jones, Cyril Gane, main event. But a fight that I find myself a little bit lost on what to think about. It could be amazing. It could be one-sided for either guy. And as much as there's a chance of that happening at all times, it's particularly the thing because there's a version of John Jones that should destroy Cyril Gane. There's a version of John Jones that could probably lose to Cyril Gane. And I have no idea which end of the spectrum he's closer to right now, because he hasn't fought in so long. And again, the hyping up of his like ex-UFC, dudes who have been cut and beat by Greg Hardy team was very weird. Valentina Shevchenko, Alexa Grasso, flyweight title, not as excited. But we do have also Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Jeff Neal. We've got Matisse Gamrot versus Jalen Turner. We got Bo Mickle on the main card, which I would not have done because it means Jamie Pickett is on the main card. I also think I probably would have put that on the undercard, get viewership on the undercard, and use that to sell the main card on the prelims, I mean. Make that the actual like featured prelim. That's what I would have done. Because no one should want to pay for Bo Nickel versus Jamie Pickett. This is not disrespect for Nickel. This is all about Jamie Pickett being not good. Cody Garbrandt versus Trevin Jones. Derek Brunson versus Dricus Duplessis, which would be what I would have put on the main card. Vivi Araujo versus Amanda Ribas. By the way, please tell me Garbrandt Jones is not going to be our featured prelim over Brunson Duplessis. Please tell me that that's not the case. But that is what Tapology has. Julian Marquez versus Marc-Andre Barrio. Ian Machado Gary versus Keenan Song. Mana Martinez versus Cameron Saman. Jessica Penne, Tabitha Ricci. Jarrett Basharat versus Damon Blackshear. And finally, Loic Radzahabov, which I think was added this very day, against Esteban Ribovics. Ribovics was going to fight Camuela Kirk, and he pulled out, and Loic has replaced him. I think Loic was supposed to be on the Ultimate Fighter season, and Conor McGregor got him kicked off because Conor McGregor, and to be honest, I've said this, I don't actually necessarily have a problem with someone trying to push for their guys. If anything, if you're going to be in Conor McGregor's team, him pushing for you is the benefit that you get from that. So, roll with it. It's an interesting card outside of like the opening fight on the card is not something I'm particularly, I'm not overly familiar with Ribovics. Maybe I'll change my mind on that. And then I'm not really thrilled by Penne Ricci or Saman Martinez, but everything else, pretty damn cool. Not necessarily like, there's not necessarily anything I'm dying to see here, but everything serves a point. Wow, whoa. Gamrot Turner. I am dying to see Gamrot Turner. That's my main event. But yeah, no, this is a well-constructed card and worth the price of admission on the pay-per-view. It's just a shame that the fight nights have to be so unimpressive to make that happen. That episode will be out on Thursday. I hope to see you then. And in the meantime, enjoy your day. And I guess, I don't know, watch Jake Paul get punched in the face a little bit.